Judith, an absolute pleasure to meet you. First question I have to ask. One of your most celebrated books is The Tiger Who Came to Tea. Now, as a fellow tea drinker, Earl Grey or English breakfast?
I don't think... You mean me or the tiger?
You personally and the tiger.
Oh, builder's tea, English breakfast.
And the tiger?
Any kind, I think. Probably every variety going.
Now, you celebrated your 90th birthday this year and you brought out this beautiful book, which we've got here, called Creatures, which looks back over your career and talks about your family and the various strings to your bow. What prompted the book?
It was suggested to me as a sort of present from the publishers, really, for my 90th birthday, which was very nice of them.
Now, your childhood began in Germany. At the time, the Nazi Party was gaining momentum, but you made it out with just a few days to spare, really.
Yes, I could never remember. I finally looked it up and I discovered exactly when we left. Hitler won the elections, which brought him to power, on the 5th of March 1933. We left Berlin on the 3rd and reached Zurich on the 4th. And 8 o'clock in the morning on the 6th of March, they came to our house to demand all our passports. So I'm 90, and all those years are because my parents were so foresighted. Terribly lucky.
Now, the thing that amazes me about your career is that you've always illustrated, pretty much. The book is filled with illustrations like these, which you must have done when you were about 7, 8 years old?
Yes, those early ones, well, I couldn't have been more than 9 because my mother packed them when we left Berlin, which I find extraordinary because there must have been more important things that she must have thought ought to be packed.
Can you remember the sorts of stories you enjoyed reading as a young girl?
Well, in Germany, I didn't realize it until we came here, but practically everything I'd read were translations from the English. The Germans aren't terribly good at fiction, I don't think. Certainly not at children's fiction. I remember I read versions of Oliver Twist and David Copperfield. I was going to say Attenborough, you see, that wouldn't have been right. And Tom Sawyer. And all the volumes of fairy tales, the Blue Fairy Tale book, all those, they're all translated into German. And I didn't realize till I came here that I'd been reading these English books all the time.
Now, The Tiger Who Came to Tea was your very first children's book. Yes. Tell us how it came about.
Well, it was just a bedtime story I'd made up for my daughter, and she liked it. I think we'd been to the zoo, and so I was making up different stories about animals, but that was the one she liked. And so that was it. And it's slightly annoying because everybody likes it so much, and it was marvellous. I mean, I should be very grateful, and I am. But that was 40-odd years ago, and I've been working my head off ever since, trying to get better.
I like that you tell us in Creatures that the publishers thought that the only strange thing about the book was that the tiger drank all the water in the tap.
Yes, that was a sort of momentary aberration, I think, on their part. Yes, they were worried about the tiger drinking all the water in the tap. They said it was a bit unrealistic, which is... the rest of the story...
And we've got some illustrations, some very early illustrations here, and these are based, I believe, on the flat in which you were living at the time.
Yes, they're from a sketchbook. I found it. I didn't realise I still had them all, but it's all. It was our kitchen and our armchair and everything. Not our tiger, but I did draw them at the zoo.
Now, was that before or after you stole the library book?
I stole the library book much later, once I'd become professional.
Right. You might have to explain this to us then. Why take an innocent library book, Judith?
Well, it was a book with lots of pictures of animals in it. It was quite a small book. I still have it. And it was very, very useful because it gave the measurements. And I found this and I used it, and it was just so useful. I kept it, but I went back and said I'd lost it. And I said, I'll pay for it. And they said, well, no, There are no fines for losing children's books, which made me feel a bit bad.
Now, after the tiger came The Crocodile Under the Bed, and then onto the other of your most famous creations, Mog.
Yes, well, we had Mog, you see. I was absolutely fascinating. I didn't know they did all these weird things. I mean, like sitting on the television set when she wanted her supper and hanging her tail down in front of the screen. I mean, it was brilliant, really.
Now, the Mog books have been loved for generations. What do you think the appeal is?
I think children always like to hear about somebody who knows even less than they do. I think it must be very annoying for children that everything's always got to be explained to them. I remember when my daughter was little, I used to have to play a terrible game with her, which she had invented, which was called Big Wah-Wahs. And I was a big wah-wah, and I had to crawl about on the floor and sort of look at things and be frightened of them. And then she would say, "No, it's all right, Big Wah-Wah, that's only the Hoover," or whatever it was. So that gave her this huge advantage of actually she knew more than somebody else. So I think maybe that's why they like the books, because they do know more than Mog. Mog doesn't get things right all the time.
Now, your trilogy of books under the collective title Out of the Hitler Time tell the story of the rise of the Nazi Party, and they're stories that came out of your own experience, but you do say that they are stories. How autobiographical are they?
Well, they're autobiographical in all essentials. I mean, all the characters and the things that happened to us. But I sometimes put things together because it was a better shape, and I emphasized some things and left out some things. I think all the important things are as true as I could make it, but the details aren't.
Was it important for you that the books were as popular in Germany and France as they were in Britain?
I remember when it first came out here, somebody said, "I don't think we'd even had a publisher then in Germany. What do you think will happen in Germany?" And I thought either they won't print it at all or it may be very popular. And it turned out to be very popular because it came just at the right moment. It came at a time when the Germans had not yet found any way of talking to their children about what happened. It was too embarrassing, too awful. Parents had been involved sometimes. So it was a very easy introduction to what happened, and I think that's why it did so well in Germany.
And one question to finish on, coming back to The Tiger Who Came to Tea, a book that still to this day gives me goosebumps on that very last page, hoping the tiger would come to tea again, but he never did. Why not, Judith?
Well, I think he'd done his lot, probably. I don't know what else he could do. I don't think he should come back, no. I mean, he drank all the water in the taps. You can't really do more than that.
Judith, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.